The bus sighed at the gates of Westbrook Academy, and whispers rose like steam from the marble steps. Aaliyah Carter stepped down in scuffed sneakers, braids neat, uniform pressed but not tailored. Scholarship student, only black girl in her year. The portraits of senators and CEOs stared down as if measuring her. She touched the silver pendant at her neck, Grandma's words steadying her. Walk tall, baby. Respect yourself, even if no one else does. In the hall, she opened a new locker and felt the air change. Logan Hastings and his friends drifted over. Polished shoes, perfect hair, laughter already loaded. There she is, Logan drawled. Westbrook's charity project. He slapped her locker shut with a metallic snap. Aaliyah reopened it, silent, calm, refusing to feed his show. That refusal unsettled him. Power liked panic. She gave none. At lunch, Aaliyah sat alone with rice and beans from home. The room quieted when Logan arrived with Brock, Ethan, and Trey, sons of power, walls with legs. Logan eyed her lunch. No silverware? Or is this hands-only day? Chuckles fluttered. She met his gaze, steady, unshaken. His smile thinned. With a theatrical flick, he knocked her food to the floor. A hush fell. He waited for tears. Aaliyah stood, voice even. Pick it up. Chairs creaked. Logan blinked, then leaned in close, heat behind the grin. Don't forget who I am. She whispered back, I know. Do you know who I am? She walked away. He watched, jaw tight, as confusion cracked his confidence. 2 days later, the shove started. Accidents near the lockers, laughter trailing her like smoke. After gym, another bump slammed her shoulder. Logan's friends closed a circle. Talk big without an audience, he sneered. Aaliyah steadied her breath. You should stop now. Or what, he mocked. She took out her phone and pressed one contact. Brock scoffed. Calling mommy? The call clicked. Through. Baby girl. The voice that answered was deep, controlled, carrying the quiet authority of someone who had led people through storms. Aaliyah didn't blink. Dad, they're pushing me again. The boys snorted, until the voice said, Put me on speaker. The locker room seemed to shrink. Aaliyah placed the phone on the bench. The voice filled the tiled air. Listen carefully. This is the last day you put hands on my daughter. If it happens again, I will come there myself. And when I do, you will remember the day you met the Reaper. The name hung like thunder. Everyone had heard it. America's most precise, most decorated sniper. A ghost the news still whispered about. Logan's smirk vanished. No one laughed. The line clicked off. For a heartbeat, all they heard was the hum of vents and their own breathing. Aaliyah slipped the phone into her pocket, lifted her chin, and stepped past them. No shove followed. No word chased her. Only space opened, like doors recognizing a rightful key. That night, rumors raced faster than texts. The scholarship girl isn't alone. Her dad is the Reaper. Some said it was a lie. Some said they recognized that voice from a documentary clip. Logan stared at the ceiling in his perfect room, trying to rebuild the story where he still wore the crown. But another truth pressed in. The calm in Aaliyah's eyes wasn't bravado. It was training. Discipline braided into her courage, dignity held like a compass. A new day dawned. Aaliyah walked the corridor the way she had promised her grandmother, tall, respectful, unafraid. She had not raised a fist. She had raised a boundary. And somewhere beyond the school's ivy and stone, a father who disappeared from headlines but never from his daughter's life was paying attention. Justice hadn't arrived yet, but it had taken aim. The next morning, the school buzzed with electricity. Whispers clung to every corner like static. Her dad is the Reaper. No way, it's a rumor. Others swore the voice in the locker room carried a weight they'd only heard on documentaries about classified missions. Whatever the truth, Logan Hastings didn't sleep that night. He had built his throne on fear, but for the first time, someone bigger had cast a shadow over it. Aaliyah walked through the marble halls with her books hugged to her chest. Students watched her differently now, not with respect but with suspicion. curiosity, even jealousy. Some whispered she lied. Some whispered she was dangerous. Logan stood near the fountain, arms folded, trying to catch her eye. She never looked his way. That quiet dignity was worse than any insult. In history class, the teacher called on her to read. Aaliyah's voice was steady, each word shaped with confidence. Logan leaned back, smirking, but his mind wasn't on the lesson. He replayed the voice on that phone, the threat so precise it felt like a sniper's aim even through the speaker. He clenched his fists. He couldn't let one girl ruin his empire of intimidation. After school, Aaliyah was called to the principal's office. Mr. Calloway sat behind his desk, glasses perched on his nose, his tone clipped. "Miss Carter, I've heard disturbing reports. You've brought unnecessary attention. A claim that your father is some military figure?" His eyes narrowed. "We value discipline here, not theatrics." Aaliyah swallowed. "I didn't start it, sir. They pushed me. I just called my dad." The principal leaned closer. "This is Westbrook. We handle matters quietly. Do not involve outsiders again." His warning carried an edge, protecting the school's image, not her safety. She nodded, but inside, anger smoldered. The rules were bent for power, for wealthy sons like Logan, but not for her. Outside the office, Logan waited. He stepped into her path, smirk barely holding. "Principal gave you a talking to? Good, maybe now you'll case. Kept that phone in your pocket." His friends chuckled, but none laughed as loudly as before. Aaliyah tilted her head, unshaken. "Funny, you're still here talking. Means you didn't hear him clearly." Logan's smile cracked. "You think your dad scares me?" His voice dropped lower. "This is my school. Not even the Reaper can change that." Aaliyah met his glare. "Then maybe you don't know what a Reaper does." She brushed past him, her steps echoing. That night at home, Aaliyah sat at the kitchen table with her mother, the quiet hum of the fridge filling the air. "He called you?" her mom asked softly. Aaliyah nodded. Her mother's eyes glistened. "He promised he'd watch over you no matter the distance." She reached across, squeezing her daughter's hand. "Don't let them break you." Meanwhile, in a mansion across town, Logan sat at a polished oak table while his father, Governor Hastings, read the evening paper. Logan hesitated before speaking. "Dad, do you know someone called the Reaper?" The governor's eyes flicked up sharply, then narrowed. "Why?" Logan shifted in his seat. "Because his daughter's at my school." The governor froze, then set the paper down slowly. His voice carried a gravity Logan had rarely heard. "If that's true, son, don't provoke him. There are men you don't want as enemies. The Reaper is one of them." Logan swallowed hard, but pride wrapped around him like chains. He couldn't let go of the throne he'd built. Not now, not ever. The next day, the tension only grew. Aaliyah walked into the cafeteria. Her steps were calm, but every eye turned. Logan sat with his friends, laughter forced, eyes tracking her. He couldn't stand that she looked freer, stronger, untouchable. And in that silence, everyone knew one truth. The game had changed. The bully wasn't in control anymore. Fear had found a new name. The morning sun spilled gold across Westbrook Academy. Amy. But the air inside buzzed with tension. By now, everyone knew the story. Aaliyah Carter, the scholarship girl, had silenced Logan Hastings with nothing but a phone call. Some students admired her, whispering that she was fearless. Others resented her, convinced she was lying. Logan sat in the courtyard, his jaw clenched, staring at her from across the lawn. His pride was a fragile crown, and it was slipping. At lunch, the storm broke. Aaliyah carried her small lunchbox, walking calmly toward a table. Logan and his friends blocked her path. "So, Reaper's daughter," Logan sneered. "You think that name makes you untouchable?" His eyes gleamed, a boy desperate to regain control. "Let's test that theory." Before Aaliyah could reply, he kicked the table leg. Her lunchbox slid, clattering to the ground again. Gasps rippled through the cafeteria. But this time, Logan didn't stop. He nudged the box with his foot, pushing it across the floor. His friends laughed nervously, but their eyes darted to the crowd. Everyone was watching. Aaliyah bent, picked up the box, and calmly set it back on the table. Her voice was low but firm. "You're still trying too hard." Logan's face burned. He grabbed her wrist, not hard enough to injure, but hard enough to prove dominance. That single action turned the crowd silent. Aaliyah's eyes didn't flicker. She whispered, "Let go." The voice behind her came like a knife through glass. "She told you to let go." Everyone turned. A tall man stood at the doorway, shoulders squared, presence radiating authority. He wore a simple jacket and jeans, but his eyes, sharp, disciplined, froze the room. It was him, John Carter, the Reaper. Logan's grip loosened instantly. He stumbled back a step, his arrogance cracking like old paint. The cafeteria buzzed with disbelief. Whispers erupted. "It's true. He's real." John's gaze swept the room, cold and assessing, like a soldier scanning a battlefield. Then his eyes softened as they lay and did on Aaliyah. "You all right, baby girl?" She nodded, relief washing over her face. "Yes, Dad." John stepped closer, standing at her side. He didn't raise his voice, but every word carried weight. "I warned you once. Touch her again, and you'll learn why they called me the Reaper." The silence that followed was absolute. Even the teachers, watching from the side, didn't move. Logan swallowed hard, pride warring with fear, but his hands stayed firmly at his sides. Aaliyah sat down, unshaken, her father beside her. The message was clear. She was no longer alone in this fight. That evening, the whole school buzzed with the story. Some said John Carter's stare alone was enough to make Logan pale. Others claimed they'd seen scars under his jacket, proof of his battlefield past. Logan sat in his mansion, fists clenched, his father's warning echoing in his mind. Don't provoke him. But humiliation gnawed at his pride. He couldn't let the story end like this. Not with him as the defeated bully. The war at Westbrook had only begun, and this time both father and daughter stood on the battlefield. The days after John Carter's appearance were different. Whispers no longer floated, they roared. Students looked at Aaliyah with a mix of awe and fear. Some wanted to sit with her now, hoping to share in the safety of her name. Others kept their distance, afraid that standing near her might put them on Logan's list. Logan himself had changed. He still strutted through the halls with his entourage, but the cracks in his confidence showed. His friends laughed too quickly, too loudly, as if trying to cover the silence left when his authority vanished. Each time Aaliyah passed, Logan's jaw tightened. Pride was a wound he couldn't hide. At home, the tension deepened. Governor Hastings called his son into the study, a cavern of leather-bound books and heavy oak furniture. "Logan, hey chance," he said sharply, "do you understand what you've done? You embarrassed this family. If it's true that her father is John Carter, the Reaper, you've picked a fight with the wrong man." Logan's voice cracked with stubbornness. "He's just a soldier, Dad. You're the governor. You have power." The governor leaned forward, his eyes hard. "Son, men like Carter don't need politics. Their power is earned on battlefields, and it doesn't disappear." But Logan wasn't listening. Humiliation festered into rage. He couldn't stand the whispers, the looks, the way Aaliyah walked past him without fear. That night he messaged his friends, "We're taking back control." The next morning, a plan unfolded. Aaliyah walked into the science lab, her books pressed against her chest. Logan and Brock stood near the door, pretending to laugh at some private joke. As she passed, a foot shot out. Her books spilled across the floor. Students laughed, but uneasily. Everyone remembered what happened last time. Logan crouched, smirking. "Need help, Reaper's daughter?" Aaliyah met his eyes. "Not from you." She bent to gather her books. Logan's hand closed over one of them, holding it just out of reach. "You think you're better than us now because of a name?" Before she could answer, the door creaked open. The room stilled. John Carter stepped inside, quiet as shadow, but his presence filled the space. He had come to meet the principal, but fate brought him here. His eyes swept the scene, locking on Logan's hand, gripping the book. "Put it down." His voice was steady, calm, but unyielding. Logan froze. Slowly he released the book. Aaliyah picked it up, standing tall beside her father. John looked around the room, speaking to everyone and no one. Respect isn't given because of fear. It's earned by how you treat people weaker than you. Remember that. The class fell silent. Even the teacher, flustered, nodded quickly. Logan's face burned crimson, but he didn't move. Later, in the principal's office, Mr. Calloway cleared his throat nervously. Mr. Carter, we appreciate your concern, but perhaps it's best if matters within the school are left to us. John's gaze pinned him in place. I trusted this school to keep my daughter safe. You failed. If you can't handle the bullying here, I will. His words cut like steel. The principal swallowed. Yes, sir. We'll address it. But Logan wasn't finished. That night he sat with his friends in the Hastings pool house. He thinks he can scare me with war stories? This is my school. My family built this town. I won't be humiliated by a scholarship girl. His fists clenched. If he wants a war, he'll get one. The lines were drawn deeper. Pride against resilience. Arrogance against dignity. And somewhere in between, the school itself trembled, caught between a governor's son and the reaper's daughter. The real battle was only just beginning. By the time Friday arrived, Westbrook Academy felt like a stage set for a play no one could stop watching. Every student knew the conflict wasn't just about two teenagers anymore. It was about names, legacies, and the kind of power that could silence whole towns. Logan Hastings walked the halls with fire in his eyes, his pride bleeding behind every smirk. Yet the laughter around him had grown thinner. His friends followed, but their glances betrayed doubt. Everyone had heard the principal's tense meeting with John Carter. Everyone knew the governor's son had finally met a wall he couldn't push through. But Logan wasn't built to accept defeat. That weekend, Governor Hastings invited the principal and a few board members to his mansion. In the glitter of chandeliers and polished silver, he spoke calmly, voice lined with menace. Westbrook must remain a place of order. I won't have my son painted as a bully in his own school. His eyes narrowed. If John Carter thinks his reputation makes him untouchable, he's wrong. This is my town. The principal nodded, nervous. He knew the game. Wealth and influence could bend rules, but deep down even he wondered, how far could they really push against the Reaper? Meanwhile, Aaliyah spent the weekend with her father. They sat on the porch, the evening breeze warm. You're stronger than I ever was at your age, John said quietly. You faced them without firing a shot. She smiled faintly. You taught me that silence can be louder than shouting. Her father studied her. But silence only works until someone tries to break it. If they push harder, are you ready to stand taller? She nodded. I'm not afraid of them. On Monday morning, the war escalated. Logan had prepared a show. As Aaliyah entered the cafeteria, she found her usual table occupied by Logan, Brock, Ethan, and Trey. They lounged like kings, blocking her seat. Logan smirked. Looking for your spot. Sorry, taken. Guess you'll have to eat on the floor. His words dripped with triumph. The crowd hushed, waiting. Aaliyah didn't flinch. She set her tray down on another table nearby, alone but steady. Enjoy it while it lasts, she said calmly. Logan's grin faltered. He leaned forward. What's that supposed to mean? Aaliyah met his gaze. Respect doesn't come from thrones made of fear, and fear never lasts forever. The cafeteria buzzed. Students whispered, some hiding smiles. For the first time, Logan felt the tide shift. That afternoon, Governor Hastings arrived at the school unannounced. He stormed into Principal Calloway's office, demanding action. Remove her, he snapped. Expel the girl. She doesn't belong here. But John Carter was already there, waiting. He stood, his presence calm but unyielding. Try it, he said softly. And I'll take this fight beyond these walls. The people you serve will see what kind of justice you protect. A governor against a teenage girl? Who do you think they'll side with? The room froze. The governor's face flushed with fury, but he said nothing. He turned sharply and left, slamming the door. News traveled fast. By evening, whispers spread not just through the school, but the town itself. The Reaper had stood toe-to-toe with the governor and hadn't blinked. At home, Logan's rage boiled. He threw a glass against the wall, shards scattering like his pride. "He humiliated us," Logan growled. His father's voice was low, dangerous. "Then make sure you end this, once and for all." But outside their mansion, the world was shifting. Students who once laughed at Aaliyah's expense now looked at her with something new, admiration. She had faced their golden boy and his powerful family without bowing. She hadn't needed fists, she had needed only truth. And truth, once spoken, was harder to silence than any rumor. The final clash was coming. Everyone could feel it. By Tuesday morning, Westbrook Academy was no longer just a school. It was a battlefield of whispers, a place where every step felt heavy with anticipation. The entire town seemed to know about the feud, the governor's son against the scholarship girl, and behind her, a father whose name carried more weight than politics. Aaliyah walked the halls with steady steps, her head high. The pendant at her neck caught the light, a reminder of strength passed down through generations. Students parted as she moved, not out of fear, but respect. Yet at the far end of the corridor stood Logan Hastings, flanked by his friends, his glare sharp as broken glass. At lunch, the tension erupted. Logan stood on a cafeteria table, his voice carrying across the room. "This school doesn't bow to outsiders. Respect belongs to those who earn it, not those who hide behind bedtime stories about soldiers." His eyes locked on Aaliyah. "Your father doesn't scare me. This is my world, my rules." Murmurs rose. Some students nodded uneasily, others shifted in discomfort. Aaliyah stood, her voice calm but clear. "You're wrong, Logan. Respect isn't given because of who your father is. It's given when you treat others with dignity, and that's something you've never learned." The cafeteria stilled. Logan's face burned crimson. He jumped down, storming toward her. For a moment it looked as if he might shove her again, but before he could, the doors opened. John Carter walked in. He wasn't dressed like a soldier, just jeans and a jacket, but his presence carried the same gravity. The room hushed. Even teachers froze. He stepped forward, his voice firm. "Enough." Logan stopped in his tracks, chest heaving. John looked around the cafeteria, speaking not just to Logan, but to everyone. "A name, a title, money, none of that makes you strong. Strength is how you treat those with less power. Strength is humility. Strength is respect." His eyes settled on Logan. "And you, son, have none of it." The silence was broken by applause. At first, just a few hands clapping, then more. Soon the entire cafeteria roared with it. Students stood cheering not for fear, but for justice. Aaliyah's eyes shimmered as she realized the tide had fully turned. Logan stumbled back, stunned. For the first time, he wasn't feared, he was pitied. His friends shifted uncomfortably, no longer laughing. One by one, they drifted away, leaving him standing alone in the middle of the room. His crown of arrogance had crumbled. That evening, the governor tried to contain the firestorm, but the story had already spread. Parents spoke of it. News outlets whispered about the showdown between a decorated veteran and a politician protecting his son. The Hastings name no longer carried the same untouchable shine. At home, John placed a hand on his daughter's shoulder. "You didn't need me to win today. You stood taller on your own." Aaliyah smiled softly. "Maybe. But having you there reminded me that I wasn't alone." The next morning, as Aaliyah walked through Westbrook's gates, students greeted her with nods, with quiet smiles. Not because her father was the reaper, but because she had shown them what courage looked like. Logan, saint. He came to school, but his walk was slower, his smirk gone. No one followed him anymore. The halls that once echoed with his dominance now carried only whispers of his fall. And for Aaliyah, a truth settled deep in her heart. Power can be taken, but respect must be earned. She had faced prejudice, arrogance, and cruelty, but she had never bent. Justice had come, not with fists, but with dignity. And that was a victory no one could take away.